Been meaning to watch this video by Cole Hastings. Cole Hastings actually makes a lot of really solid videos, and I don't think I've watched a single Cole Hastings video on the channel yet, so, yeah, I'm down to watch a video by Cole Hastings. This is Gen Z's radicalization shouldn't surprise you. Yeah, I would say my generation has a lot of issues. I know I'm going to sound like a pick-me because I'm Gen Z myself, and so, like, that's going to make me sound very, like, odd, but, like, my generation just struggles being connected with reality in a lot of ways, and that really sucks to say, but, like, a lot of them struggle financially, a lot of them struggle when it comes to, like, actually dealing with real-world problems, and then, of course, COVID pretty much expediting that. Like, a lot of people just stopped maturing after COVID, and then they kind of just became super terminally online. There's a lot of things to talk about, and so, yeah, let's just get right to it.
On the surface, Gen Z looks just like any other generation before them, sort of. But beneath their external appearance,
not the fucking haircut,
are some of the most extreme ideologies the world has ever seen. Take a look at this guy. He goes by the name Clavicular online. Seems like a normal dude, right? But if you watch even 30 seconds of one of his videos, he will start—
Bro, he looks like he's in a frat house or something. Like, he's this is like a total, like, frat club or something.
Start using words that, to maybe 80% of people who speak English, seem completely made up.
So we take a look and we've got a lot of rosacea, just showing you a basic way to improve by 1 to 2 PSL, because these two softmaxes can go a long way. You know, with the lack of facial angularity, it's causing me to have an overly wide perceived facial width to height ratio.
Does anyone understand what the fuck he's saying? Because I don't even understand what the hell he's saying.
Clavicular is part of a group of people called looksmaxers who first spawned on internet forums. Looksmaxers are obsessed with doing anything and everything they can to maximize what they call their PSL and SMV.
Damn, that sounds kind of gay as fuck.
Their personal look scale and sexual market value, respectively. They believe that the only thing that determines basically all areas of success in your life is your looks, and to not obsess over your looks is doing yourself a massive disservice.
Do you value hard work at all?
No, absolutely not. I value efficient work, I value smart work. Hard work is a ridiculous concept.
In order to optimize his looks maxing, Clavicular has been injecting testosterone since the age of 14, and he plans on flying to Turkey soon for a double jaw surgery.
That's crazy work, dude. Since you were 14, does his parents know about him injecting testosterone into him?
According to online sources, he's only 19 years old.
Oh my fucking god, dude. That's insane.
And yet, he has adopted what I think most people would consider a very radicalized view of the world. Subgroups of different extremist ideologies like looks maxing are not uncommon these days. Now we have groypers, a term used to identify followers or fans of white nationalist and live streamer Nick Fuentes.
Oh yeah. Our favorite guy who thinks that, like, fucking Israel infiltrated the CIA for decades and he constantly pushes JQ conspiracy theories all the time.
On the left side, we have Antifa, or anarcho-communists, or—
Well, okay, I don't know, man. Like, just— Antifa is not real. I know people get upset when I say that Antifa is not real. People are like— but, like, every time someone tries to present me, like, a fucking, like, proof that, like, Antifa is real, they're like, oh my god, it's like this organized thing, it has like a leader and everything, it's like this organized thing, it's like this whole Cordis D shit from Black Ops 2. No, Antifa's not real. They're not organized. That one person, I watched a Brad Palumbo video, I think a couple months back, where he was talking about the No Kings protests, and then there was like a guy who set a sign that said, I am Antifa, and that was like the only sign of the person that I could find. Like, I don't know, it's just like, people get radicalized, but, like, Antifa's not, like, this organized thing, and it's not as big of a threat as people make them out to be, alright? Like, chill out.
tankies glorifying authoritarian communist regimes. We have black pillars holding similar beliefs to looks maxers in regards to the fact that the only thing that matters is looks, while extending their beliefs outside of the looks realm to an all-encompassing doomeristic view of the world. We have hyper-masculine traditionalists and tradwives who think we should repeal the 19th Amendment, and hyper-feminists who think—
Well, that's called being red-pilled, just to be clear. Like, there's a lot of red pill, though. To be fair, the red pill movement has been dying ever since Andrew Tate got outed as a sex trafficking, grooming rapist.
Men are the source of all evil. When you scroll through the trenches of social media, Reddit, or underground internet forums, your first instinct might be to ask, how could anyone seriously think like this? But if you understood the world much of Gen Z inhabits, and how that world compares to the history of past generations of radicalized youth, this would not surprise you at all. So today, I want to talk a little bit about that history. I want to explain to you why the youth have always radicalized during moments like these, how that radicalization has adapted to the internet era, and offer a way toward maybe, just maybe, not necessarily compassion, but at the very least, understanding. And then we can talk about what it would actually take to pull ourselves out of this. In order to understand Gen Z's radicalization, we need to look at its contributing factors. It's not enough to just throw up our hands and say, wow, these people are so out of touch and stupid, as true as that might seem in some cases. We need to ask, what kind of world produces young people who think this way?
Well, I think there's another interesting conversation we could have out of this, and that's the fact that, like, a lot of... I had a best friend for 20 years. I'll tell this story publicly, because, like, I doubt I'm ever going to talk to him again, ever in my life. And I don't think I would ever accept him back in my life after events unfolded, we'll say. But basically, after I went through my, like, cancellation, he kind of just jumped ship. A lot of people are cowards when it comes to controversy, but that's neither here nor there. And I noticed that he was, he started attending a lot of more pro-Palestinian protests. He started cutting people off that didn't agree with him fully and stuff. I noticed that. And at the time, I thought he was doing a good thing because I was generally under the same beliefs that he was. And it's good. You should speak up for Palestine. Like, being pro-Palestinian is a good thing. You should call out Israel's war crimes. It's okay to say that Israel has a right to exist, but, like, they don't have a right to be doing what they're doing to Palestine. It's terrible. But, like, he started, like, cutting people off who slightly disagreed with him, and he became such a huge coward when it came to controversy. So, like, I had a friendship with him for 20 years, and then just, like, once I had my, like, allegations, even though he knew about it behind the scenes, he pretended like he found out new information about it, and then he just, like, cut me off out of it. So... I don't know, man. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, a lot of people... Like, I would say it's safe to say that he's probably radicalized to some capacity. Like, he probably has, like, some form of radicalization. And I think a lot of Gen Z is. It's not limited to just him. There's, like, a lot of people that are just, like... There's, like, a huge rise in, like, echo chambers of people just, like, not accepting opinions from other people. Now... Obviously, you shouldn't... there are some opinions you shouldn't accept. Like, if somebody says they want to, like, murder all trans people or they want to murder all gay people, then yeah, obviously you shouldn't accept those opinions. Or if somebody says something along the lines of, like, it's okay for 13-year-olds to get married to, like, 20-year-olds, like something that, like, Sneeko says, then no, you shouldn't accept those opinions, obviously. But, like, I don't know, if it's something like, saying Israel has a right to exist... and then they cut you off just for saying that, that's fucking crazy to me. I don't know. I don't think that's a particularly hot take to say that Israel has a right to exist, but that they don't have a right to do whatever they want.
Switching the framing like that can provide us with a perspective that might help cool our anger towards these groups' harmful or hateful beliefs, while allowing us to observe historical trends that answer the question I just posed. Historically, young people are more prone to radicalization when certain conditions are met, and
I think the internet has definitely expedited a lot of that radicalization. Like, TikTok has definitely been a huge thing, especially during 2020 when, like, the pendulum was, like, very left. It got a little bit annoying in 2020, though. It definitely got a little bit too left, and people were just, like, very annoying. But that's because people were online. They didn't have anything else to do. But now the pendulum has, like, really shifted in the direction of the right. We're slowly starting to see the pendulum come back a little bit more, but, like, it's definitely still very dominantly right.
Conditions I want to focus on in this video are economic instability and declining optimism, adults and institutions failing to provide stable meaning and a sense of generational betrayal, and massive technological shifts. And if it isn't obvious to you already, all of these kind of work in tandem. One affects the other, and so forth and so forth. So let's go over the first point, economic instability and declining optimism, using a time where mass radicalization of the youth reached a somewhat similar popularity as it has today, post-World War I Germany. Germany came out of the war defeated and humiliated, sending the economy into full hyperinflation. By 1923, the monthly inflation rate peaked around 29,500%, meaning prices were doubling every few days. One US dollar, which cost 50 marks in 1920, was suddenly worth 4.2 trillion marks by November 1923.
Yeah, hyperinflation was no fucking joke in Germany whatsoever. I mean, that's how Hitler rose to power. Like, he tapped into people's anger, and then he decided to, well, do what he did.
Class savings, pensions, and long-term wages were basically erased, and if you're a young people watching your parents' finances vanish overnight, the message is pretty clear. The system doesn't work, and the adults in charge have no idea what they're doing. Hyperinflation got tamed by 1924, but the damage to...
I'm pretty sure hyperinflation, like, post-World War I Germany got so bad to the point where, like, if you wanted to buy, like, a loaf of bread, it would be close to, like, around, like, 4... Is that 4 billion? Yeah, I think it would be close to like 4 billion marks or something. But then it would go even higher than that. And the reason why they did that is because like Germany just kept printing money and money eventually just lost all value. And like that's why you don't just keep printing money. Like everything, like money just loses value if you keep printing it.
Trust was done. Then, the Great Depression hit. Industrial output fell by roughly 30%, and by 1932, around 6.1 million Germans were unemployed, about 1/3 of the working-age population. Historians writing about this period talk about a, quote, lost generation.
I don't know, when he said the Great Depression, I was thinking of, like, the United States specifically. I guess it's not meant to be confused with the United States version. I think it's still in Germany, because there was a lot of unemployed.
Of jobless youth whose entire entry into adult life was barricaded. Being young in 1930s Germany often meant no job, no prospects, and no clear place in society. Does that sound familiar? Now let's talk about how this funneled young people into extremist thinking. In this context, radical political groups became one of the only places offering a story that made sense out of the chaos and a path to feeling useful and important.
I mean, that's how Hitler rose to power, and like Hitler was able, because he tapped into people's anger about nothing ever changing, and people were sick of the same old, same old. So, yeah, in a weird way, it does sound familiar. I don't think we're ever going to go to an Adolf Hitler situation ever again, because that was especially bad, like, in history. Like, that was, like, one of the worst times in history, period. But no, there are some similarities, we'll say.
On the far right, the Nazi Party and its orbit leaned hard into youth recruitment. After the crash, Nazi electoral support exploded from about 2% of the vote in 1928 to 38% by mid-1932, making them the largest party in the Reichstag. Paramilitary groups like the SA and
Excuse me, Cole, it's Reichstag. Get it right.
Earlier Freikorps units, often made up of men in their 20s, gave disoriented young guys uniforms, camaraderie, and a sense of political purpose. But the clearest example of this youth funnel is the Hitler Youth. Membership was relatively modest at the end of 1932, about 108,000 boys. But after the Nazis took power and started suppressing rival youth organizations, membership skyrocketed to 2.3 million by 1933 and around 3.6 million by 1934 and kept climbing in the later 1930s. It's important to note that people don't necessarily adopt extremist racist ideologies simply because of economic instability, but if there's some part of that embedded already within the culture, and then a strong enough, confident enough political leader produces enough propaganda to convince you that your problems will be solved if you attach yourselves to these racist ideologies, that's when it really starts to sprout.
Yeah, and also, I think another, like, huge thing that, like, leans to JQ is obviously, like, Hitler wanted to shift all the blame to Jewish people, and, like, a lot of people really saw it that way, that, like, Jews were responsible for the economic decline of Germany, and so they just want to blame it on Jews, and then that's when the Holocaust began.
On the far left, there was somewhat of a similar story. The Young Communist League of Germany, the youth wing of the Communist Party, grew into a dedicated militant organization whose membership peaked in the tens of thousands by the last years of the Weimar Republic. So you have one set of youth channeling their...
I thought it was Weimar Republic. I thought that's how you pronounce it, because W's are pronounced as V's in German.
Anger into nationalist extremism and racial...
Germans!
Hierarchy, while another channeled it into revolutionary extremism and class war. But both sides are reacting to a structural reality where their future was stripped away from them, and in that reality, extremist organizations promise three things that normal institutions can no longer promise, which is certainty, belonging, and a future. Without thinking too hard, you can clearly see how much of this mirrors the material conditions and cultural narratives happening in the West today.
Yeah, kind of, but not to the extent of, I guess, Adolf Hitler. I mean, if you want to talk about maybe the America First movement with what Nick Fuentes is doing, I mean, really, all it boils down to is there are a group of conservatives that hate Jews, and there are a group of conservatives that don't hate Jews, and that's where, like, a lot of the right infighting is, like, really starting. And I mean, again, not to mention that like Trump has also lost popularity due to the Epstein files stuff happening and everything. But like, generally speaking, the right has never really cared about marginalized groups. They've never really cared about gay or trans people or black people or Asian people. They've never really cared about any of these groups of people. It's only when like the hatred for Jewish people became, I guess, more prominent on the right is when the infighting started to begin, because they already have the dominant narrative. They don't need to work together to fight for the narrative anymore. That's why when the narrative was dominantly left, there was a lot more infighting than there is. Not to say that there isn't infighting on the left already. Like, there still is infighting that happens for people who slightly disagree with you, but like there was a lot more of it, especially when the pendulum was on the left.
The unemployment rate for Americans between 20 and 24 just hit a 10-year high, excluding the pandemic. And for the first time in the last 40 years or so, the unemployment rate for recent college graduates aged 22 to 27 is higher than the unemployment rate for all workers. While renting prices have cooled down significantly, the general cost of living has not. Any Gen Zer can tell you how unaffordable daily life feels now, even...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, inflation is no joke. It also hasn't gotten easier once Trump put in the tariffs. That's why a lot of people really like Zoran Mamdani, because of the idea of taxing the rich and making New York more affordable. That's the whole idea. Because, like, living in day-to-day society is just, like, tough, and I don't think Trump has done anything positive for the country other than just, like, fuck it up more and more. I mean, like, if a lot of conservatives got upset when Mamdani got elected, but like, if you can vote for Trump, who has fucked up the country in many ways, especially during his second term, you can handle Mamdani being mayor for a singular city.
With an average job. And of course, the rising cost of education throws them into thousands of dollars of debt before they can even get started. In a system like this, it's no wonder that young people are more susceptible to latching on to extremist ideas, because those ideas, unlike the solutions proposed by people who are more nuanced and sit in the middle of the political spectrum, are vivid and establish a clear enemy, which, to them at least, is much better than having no purpose at all. But I want to expand upon that point a bit further after going into the next condition which usually leads to radicalization in a society: adults and institutions failing to provide stable meaning and a sense of generational betrayal. But first, I've been talking extensively on this channel about being chronically offline, and the importance of that is really going to be highlighted in the second half of this video.
Hell yes, dude, I say this on the channel all the time. I started, like, trying not to be as terminally online. Obviously, I'm like, I upload on this channel, and I'm in Papa Guts community, so, like, I do be a little bit terminally online here and there still. I try not to be as terminally online as I used to be. I've been trying to, like, break away from that as much as I can, but, like, I still be a little terminally online, but, like, being terminally online is, like, an insane thing, or an insane problem for Gen Zer specifically. It's a huge part in, like, how Gen Z gets so radicalized, because a lot of the pro-Palestinian movement, generally speaking, is like a good thing to raise awareness for. But I think one of the harmful things that's come from it is, I think a lot of Gen Zers and a lot of people have been, I guess, trained to not trust the media or whatever, or be like, oh, the media just lies to you. They don't show every single part about the Israel-Palestine conflict. You shouldn't trust these media sources. And some of that can also stem from pro-Hamas propaganda. And that's especially, like, dangerous for radicalizing people. Because pro-Hamas, being pro-Hamas and being pro-Palestinian are two different things. Being pro-Hamas, like, there's a lot of pro-Hamas propaganda that'll train you to not trust the media, especially, like, a lot of places on, like, Twitter and Instagram. And also Facebook as well. Facebook is also really problematic when it comes to disinformation as well.
But one thing that's really helped me with that is e-ink devices, and that's why I'm happy to introduce today's sponsor.
And then you guys know that we have to watch all the advertisements in the video. We got to watch all the sponsors. VWoods.
The VWoods AI paper reader. If you aren't familiar, this is an e-ink device that uses a screen called Carta 1300 with a 300 pixels per inch display that manipulates tiny black and white particles. It is the perfect blend between digital and analog, and has helped a ton with reducing my doom scrolling addiction.
Has anyone ever, like, fucking seen an analog sex tape? Like, I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind, because we've seen videos of it, but has anyone ever seen, like, an analog version of it? That'd be kind of silly.
Actually owned a larger e-ink device before, but VWood's device is the size of a phone and I can take it anywhere I go, and runs on the Android 16 operating system. It's extremely well designed and very compact. Now, instead of pulling out my phone during my free time, I can open EPUBs and PDFs of books I've loaded onto the device and read without having to lug anything heavy around. While you're reading, you can also tap a button on the side to use AI to assist you if there's anything complex you need help understanding in your books. Then you can save the answer into your knowledge base stored on the device, so you have a concise and easy way to search for all the lessons and important plot points in your readings.
Dude, this would have been so helpful when I was reading Blood Meridian, because there's, like, a ton of stuff in the Blood Meridian book that's just really tough to follow. Like, I got to chapter 10 in that book, and I just haven't finished it. Like, I really need to just, like, get back to it eventually. Maybe I'll use one of these devices. Then again, I'm a broke Gen Zer, so what do I know?
On top of that, if you wanted this device to replace your phone, it absolutely...
I'm also unemployed again, which sucks. I announced that I got a job earlier, but I had some complications with that job, and I couldn't stay in that job, which kind of sucks. So we're back trying to get them job applications out. Hopefully something will turn up.
We could, since it runs on Android, so you can take calls and send messages too. And although the screen does have a backlight you can use if you're in a dark environment, if you turn the brightness all the way down, it doesn't produce any blue light like phones do, so it won't cause any eye strain or interfere with your sleep. So if you're interested in tackling your doom scrolling addiction and going more analog, you can click the first link in the description and try it out, and hopefully it will replace some or most of your phone usage. Before the internet became the youth's primary source of information, most of your sense of how the world works came from a few big pillars: your family, school, maybe a church or religious community, and whatever image of the country you got from news, movies, and politics. If they're functioning well, they offer some kind of answer to questions like, what matters? Who can I trust? And is the future worth working toward?
Well, it's definitely a huge part of it, like the who can I trust part, especially since a lot of Gen Z is like trained not to trust the media and stuff, and not to trust like official sources, because I guess there's like a conspiracy that they could be lied to. That was like a huge thing in the pro-Palestinian movement. Again, I think being pro-Palestinian is good, but there's a lot of pro-Hamas propaganda that can slip through the cracks that way very easily.
It's common for the youth to disagree or even rebel against the most common answers to these questions, but they still form a stable backdrop. However, when these institutions start to feel hollow or hypocritical, that backdrop collapses. To see how this played out in the real world and relate it back to today, we can look at the late 1960s and early 1970s in the US and Western Europe. In the early 1960s, most Americans still believed the federal government was basically trustworthy. In 1964, about 77% of Americans said they trusted Washington to do what is right just about always or most of the time. Within a decade, after the escalation of the Vietnam War, civil rights clashes, urban riots, and the Watergate scandal, that number had dropped to 36%, and by the end of
Richard Nixon shouldn't have been recording all those tapes of him saying the N-word and fucking doing whatever the fuck he was doing in Watergate. I have to like dive into Watergate again. Like, it was really bad, some of the leaks. I have to like really do another deep dive on it. Not on a video, but like some other time, because it's been a while. I always forget like all the details about the Watergate scandal.
The 1970s, it was around 25%. In other words, the default assumption went...
I know that Richard Nixon said the N-word, though. That got leaked, and he, I guess, hated black people, so there's that.
From the people in charge are trying, even if they mess up, to they're probably lying. At the same time, the Vietnam War made that loss of trust feel brutally personal, especially for young people. Between 1964 and 1973, the US military drafted about 2.2 million men out of an eligible pool of 27 million. The people deciding on the war were older, and the people forced to fight in it were overwhelmingly 18 to 26. That age gap is the emotional core of generational betrayal. The older people make these catastrophic decisions, and the younger bodies have to absorb the consequences. Then there's events like what happened at Kent.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I don't think we have the draft anymore when it comes to wars specifically. That's a whole separate conversation. But if we ever did have a World War III, would we bring back the draft again? I don't know, man.
State. On May 4th, 1970, National Guard troops opened fire on students protesting the war at Kent State University in Ohio.
Oh my god, my dad showed me a video of this. Oh, wow.
Ohio, killing 4 and wounding 9 more. The shootings triggered...
Yeah, there was a lot of protests at colleges during this time period, 1974, I believe.
Nationwide student strike that shut down hundreds of colleges and universities. Think about what that does to you as a young person watching that unfold. The institutions are basically saying that they would rather shoot you than listen to you, and whatever moral authority those institutions held evaporates. A similar pattern played out in France during May 1968. Student protests against rigid universities led to police crackdowns and street battles in Paris, and within weeks around 10 million workers joined a general strike, which was the largest in French history. The economy hadn't collapsed like Weimar Germany's, but a whole generation felt locked out by rigid institutions and a political class that refused to make room for them. In both cases, you see the same pattern. Institutions lose legitimacy, younger generations feel increasingly sacrificed or silenced, and more radical movements step in with a satisfying narrative. They say, you're not crazy, you're right to feel betrayed, here's who did this to you, and here's how we fight back. Talking about this with a bit of nuance though, and I'm going to highlight this again in the later portion of the video, I do think some radical movements are necessary. You know, going on protest, for students getting shot, going on this like nationwide meltdown, it's sometimes necessary in order to enact the change that you need. But
yeah, I mean, if students are legitimately getting shot on fucking campus, like, it makes sense. Like, especially, and even with, like, the ICE protests, right? Like, I understand the anger with the ICE protests. Now, you shouldn't throw bricks or attack police officers. You shouldn't do that, right? Because, like, I tend to sympathize with cops. It's not an easy job. So, you shouldn't do that. But I also can understand the anger. Because Trump is utilizing, especially like now with like Trump utilizing the fucking ICE protests disproportionately to try to get people out of the country and robbing them from due process, which is a right in the amendments, in the 10 amendments or the original amendments. That's one of the original 10 amendments that was written for the United States.
you know,
in the Bill of Rights.
It is happening in a different sort of flavor here, and that's not necessarily the type of radical movements that I have been trying to criticize throughout this video and that I'm going to continue trying to criticize. These sorts of problems have only been highlighted and exacerbated to the nth degree in
Trump's best friend!
modern society. Using our next
And it's Ghislaine Maxwell, who always looks like a fucking lesbian every time I see Ghislaine Maxwell.
condition I'm going to go over, the technological shifts we've received over the past couple decades, every corrupt politician
I guess she was into something a little more sinister than just women, though.
or scandal has been dissected and exposed, leaving little to no room for manipulation. And when you couple that with an increasingly unstable and unpredictable environment, it's no wonder why the youth feels like they were betrayed and the future that they prepared for never came. But by far, what is probably the biggest contributor to radicalization of all types that has undoubtedly affected all of these other conditions is the rise of the internet and smartphones.
Man, I'd be telling you, like, I'm a Gen Zer myself. I experienced it. And I think I have a very... The reason why I knew this specifically is because I have a very unique perspective as a Gen Zer. I think I've seen a lot of different perspectives. I think when I was around, like, I want to say, like, middle school and, like, early in high school, I was generally, like, a left-leaning person. I would say I was actually pretty far left, honestly, like, around that time. Like, I was, like, strictly left, and I saw that the right was, like, bad guys or whatever, you know what I mean? And then I started to see from the right's perspective a little more. I watched, like, a lot of Ben Shapiro debates, and I was like, oh, wow, the liberals are actually stupid or whatever. These people are actually, like, really dumb that try to debate Ben Shapiro. That's how they get you. And I feel like that expedited a lot of young men getting radicalized into being right-wing. Like, stuff like that, like dunking on libs and stuff. That was, like, a huge part of it. Like, I've been through that level of radicalization, I would say. I want to say, like, maybe around 11th grade to 12th grade. And so, I was, like, definitely radicalized to some capacity. I'm not proud of it. I definitely was a lot more right-leaning then. But then, eventually, I think, like, sometime after COVID, I think it was, like, during 2020 or 2021... I became a little more left-leaning again. I started to, like, sympathize a lot more with the left because I was like, oh, wow, I actually was not advocating for anything good. And then once I started getting involved in my old Twitch platform, I became far left again. I went right back to being far left. I was like, this is the right thing I should have done always, like 100%. But no, it wasn't. It was just, it was very toxic. It like a lot of far left spaces are very toxic, and they like ostracize people who don't fully agree with them. And so I stopped being like super far left because I think it's toxic. I still think being left-leaning is better. I actually think it's like objectively the policies in left-leaning politics are better than right-leaning politics. Like objectively speaking, based on how I see it, just like objectively it feels better that way. I was about to say in my personal opinion, but like when you look at all the policies that the Democrats try to put in versus the policies that the right tries to put in, the Republicans actively try to take away rights to LGBTQ people all the time. They try to take away abortion rights. They also, like, Trump was like focused on adding a bunch of fucking tariffs in place. A lot of policies that they have just like benefit rich people all the time. And so I think that like a lot of left-leaning policies like universal basic income are generally the better path forward. And I think it's just like more correct than the other side. But yeah, I mean the pendulum do be in the right now. That's just the way where we're at.
The globalization of information allowed us to educate ourselves on so much, but it also made it remarkably easier to fall into echo chambers of misinformation and extremist thinking to help us explain why we feel so lost, empty, hopeless, and displaced. It is not just politicians or people in power who can do the manipulating now. Anyone with enough confidence and perceived authority can lean into your confirmation bias, convincing you that your struggles are due to some singular life flaw or a certain group of people, when the reality is far more complex. Looks-maxing is one of those examples. Often looks-maxers align their beliefs highly with the black pill ideology.
I gotta be honest with you, this whole like looks-maxing, like I guess radicalization thing, this is like the first time I've ever heard about it as a Gen Zer. Maybe I just live under a rock. Maybe I'm not familiar with like the Gen Z like lingo or the Gen Z like looks maxer. I'm definitely not as educated on Gen Z lingo as the rest of my generation because I just don't give a fuck personally. I don't care. Like I have like one leg millennial and one leg Gen Z, I guess, is like kind of how I see it.
This is a sphere on the internet who believe that without good looks, you have zero chance of attracting somebody, getting a good job, or achieving basically any amount of success. But the foundations of society set them up for this kind of thinking. Before someone even considers themselves a black pillar, they're usually someone who's having more difficulty with women than they ever would have in previous generations, largely because the dating market has skewed in ways shaped by technology and a lack of stable opportunities. So what do? They go searching for answers online. Confirmation bias pushes them to focus only on...
Right, and then you find like all these forums posts, and then you find Reddit posts, and the downward spiral just begins from there. Yeah, that's why you just gotta not do that shit. You gotta be outside more, as I say it.
What already feels true.
I should probably take my own advice, though, to be fair.
Which might be the belief that everything comes down to their looks. They start consuming black pill content in a viscerally emotional state, and the experiences within that community mirror their own. Slowly, they seep deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole, and that ideology seeps into everything they do. I can only imagine some version of this happened to that clavicular guy I mentioned at the beginning. Because let's be honest here, if technology and social media didn't push us to focus on the more superficial aspects of humanity, if the economy was stable and people had a fairly easy time getting a job and a partner, and it wasn't revealed that basically all institutions are lying to us and there's little meaning to extract from any of this, do you think the thought of I need to become a Chad Looksmaxer would have even crossed this guy's mind?
Probably not. I mean, like I said, the job market is very rough. And there's a lot of reasons for the job market being like tough. That's like a whole separate conversation we can get into. I think one of the biggest problems for the job market being rough is definitely AI. Absolutely. Like AI is killing so many jobs in so many fields. Film jobs it's killing. A lot of people in any game developers are being like replaced by like AI. A lot of artists are getting replaced by AI. Like it's actually fucking insane how much AI is killing jobs. Like I think we need to tax AI personally. Like we need to tax the fuck out of it so people are not as incentivized to use it as much. That's I think like a good start to like maybe like solving the AI issue. And there's like a ton of other things. Like I think it should like, and also the government is not really interested in putting any regulations on AI. And I don't think we're going to ever see any regulations on AI legally for a good couple of years at the very least.
Absolutely not. But the conditions of society today create the perfect concoction to...
There's a couple of other reasons, by the way, I forgot to mention. But I saw a statistic where 2024 had like a total of 160,000 job listings in like 1 month of America, or like in like a certain time frame. Within that same time frame in 2025, those job listings have been halved to 80,000. Yeah, the job market is, I'm not saying the job market's ever been the greatest, but I would say the job market in 2025 has been the worst that it's like ever been in years. It's actually like kind of scary how fucked it is.
Produce more radicalized young people because radicalization gives them something to grasp in a world that feels increasingly nebulous. It also gives them a sense of identity, which is unbelievably important when you're young and something that social media and institutions have broke. And that's another reason why this iteration of society feels so devoid of hope and purpose, even if there might be. At least in the past, if you were going through some shit, you would at least have that friend group or some sort of community, like a religious organization that you...
Fuck that shit. I don't trust anybody anymore, man. Like, people... We live in such weird times, man. Everybody's so divided. Everybody's so, like, stuck in their own, like, place or whatever. Like, it's tough to find people to trust, man. It's like, I almost don't do it because it's just like, I kind of just like really am training myself to not be dependent on like friends or people as much. I've kind of just like been that way because it's like people just suck. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, you know, I used to think that back when I was on my Twitch platform that like I had like tons of people who enjoyed being around me and stuff, and you know, like I thought I had like a ton of friends, especially people who knew of the controversy before it became public. But again, as I said earlier, there are a lot of people who are cowards when it comes to controversy whenever it goes public. So, because a lot of it's just optics. It's purely just optics.
Could fall back to that hold the same beliefs as you. But the internet, in all of its individualized, hyperbolized sections, divides humans into extremely specific, unique subcategories that separate you from everyone else in a way that we have never seen before. When we gained access to any and all information, it gave us the ability to shape our beliefs into something uniquely our own. But the consequence was that agreeableness, even when it meant conforming to a group you didn't fully align with, began to erode. The amount of identity subgroups on the...
I think that's a huge thing in like really far left politics online specifically, where like even if you don't fully agree with them, you try your best to, because that's how like audience capture tends to develop in a lot of these communities. I don't know if that's a thing on the right. I know audience capture is a thing on the right, but I don't know if like people have to do that for the right to like agree with everything that they say. Maybe that's a thing, maybe it isn't. I've never gone like down that like super pipeline when it comes to like right-leaning communities. Like I became a lot more like right-leaning when I was in like I want to say maybe closer to when it like towards the end of 11th grade and maybe going into like my 12th grade years is when I became a lot more right-leaning.
The internet is insane now. There's gooners, doomer zoomers, e-girls.
Dude, honestly, like gooning is it's the biggest crime ever, but we do be gooner brained around here.
Femcels, sigma males, neo-trad wives, based nationalists, anarcho-primitivists. The list is endless.
Hey man, listen, like gooning do be a problem these days. But is it really a problem? I'm squinting my... You guys can't see it, but I'm squinting my eyes. Is it really a problem that some people are too big of gooners?
Might not trust your...
I thought we were supposed to be more fucking sex positive around here.
Government, your school, or your parents, but you can trust those guys in your Discord server or subreddit who can understand all the things that you're going through that nobody else can. Or you can trust the creator who's telling you exactly why you're struggling and exactly who's to blame. And there's also something a bit more insidious going on with the internet and the feedback loop it provides that I don't think enough people really understand or are talking about.
Oh, dude, I totally understand it completely. The moment I lost everything, like when the allegations came out and I lost pretty much my entire platform, like I slowly but surely, like the veil unopened, basically. Like everything like unveiled is what I'm trying to say. Like, I started to see very clearly that a lot of narratives online get very sensationalized, and there's a lot of really insidious narratives that get put out there online. So I started to notice it. I don't think a lot of Gen Zers notice it, though. I do agree that, like, not a lot of people are talking about it because they've never had to be put in that position where they, like, lost everything. A lot of people don't typically have to go through something like that, and so they don't ever really truly understand the troubles of, like, how bad some narratives get online.
I brought this article up in my last video, but it is simply too important to not bring it up again. This National Geographic article shows how social media keeps you in a constantly deregulated, traumatized state. In the article, there was a study measuring acute stress after viewing the pictures of the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013, and they found that people who viewed more violent imagery were more likely to report post-traumatic stress symptoms like nightmares, hypervigilance, and emotional numbness 6 months later. But this is the insane part. Individuals who consumed over 6 hours of media per day reported more acute psychological symptoms like unwanted dreams, difficulty sleeping, and intrusive memories than those who were actually at the bombing.
Well, that's a thing psychologically, and I think a good term for this is secondhand trauma. Like, that's a real thing. And I also get secondhand trauma, like seeing a bunch of, like, really horrible shit online. Like, on the channel, and, like, also, even before I started this channel, like, you would see, we would cover a lot of, like, predatory content, right? Like, there's, like, a lot of, like, really disgusting people on the channel. Now, there are cases where it's kind of silly, like, Call Me Carson. Like, that's, like, obviously a silly scenario. But then there's, like, legitimate predators who do, like, absolutely disgusting things. Like, a most recent case was that Jesse Butler guy from Stillwater, Oklahoma, who was, like, a violent rapist that, like, got away scot-free from the legal system because of all the, like, the massive corruption ring that he and his family were in. And so, like, seeing stuff like that, as well as also seeing, like, predatory shit, like, actual, like, legitimate grooming, that shit fucks you up. Like, especially, like, the Zoe Laverne stuff, like, that shit can, like, really fuck you up and get angry. That's, like, a secondhand trauma, and it, like, really brings the mood down. And, like, I know Papa Gut, before he, like, there was, like, a period of time where that's, like, all he would do is he would just, like, do predator content, right? Like, doing allegations of different people, and, like, a lot of it was legitimate predators that he was involved in, like, exposing, like Gemini Official and, like, a bunch of others. And then, like, obviously, like that shit can get to you. Like, there is, like, a legitimate secondhand trauma. You have to be very careful about the amount of content that you consume online.
So think about how often this happens nowadays, now that we have access to all of the world's tragedies that are thrust down our throat at all times on social media. You have millions of young Americans stuck in an emotional state that is similar, if not worse, to trauma survivors, who then go out into the real world in that emotional state, who then affect the world in that emotional state due to how they engage with it. Like, it's no fucking wonder why Gen Z is so radicalized, because when you're in such an emotionally dysregulated state all the time, the logic centers of the brain turn off. You stop seeking the nuance, you stop trying to find objective.
I think Gen Z is, like, the least nuanced generation out there, to be honest with you. Like, millennials, I would say, like, because millennials were around when, like, AOL was a thing, or, like, like, just, like, the old, like, Facebook or whatever. Millennials, like, I would say are more nuanced, but even then, some millennials have lost a lot of nuance to, like, ones that, like, become more, like, prevalent on, like, social media and stuff. But Gen Z especially is, like, one of the least nuanced, generations out there. It's actually, like, it's scary, and I think it's a little bit upsetting, and I hope that one day that there is, like, a shift that happens. I've given up hope for them, personally. But, like, I would like to be wrong. I would like to maybe, like, one day, like, down the line, there will be something that'll give, that'll, like, maybe they'll gain some more wisdom. Maybe there will be something that's, like, a healthier alternative to social media. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. But I just hope that, like, one day it doesn't stay like that forever.
Truth, and you simply just grasp onto whatever makes sense in that moment, whatever's the most extreme, and whatever attaches to your emotions the most and makes you feel the most pleasurable in that moment. And in that moment, it's gonna be some sort of radical thinking. So let's try to distill everything that has led to Gen Z's radicalization in a few sentences. They live in a time of increasing debt, unemployment, and economic uncertainty.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. I'm definitely, I feel that.
Traditional forms of meaning, whether through religion or community in real life, have kind of dissolved. There's a growing distrust in institutions to set things right, and an equally growing divide between a generation that came up in a steadier world and one raised inside an ever-changing, ever-complex hyper-reality. And as a result, to try to form any semblance of belonging, meaning, or revolt, Gen Z is more prone to radicalize themselves into loads of different subgroups. Do you really think I'm just gonna leave this video on that note? Absolutely not. I do not believe in raising awareness to problems without posing solutions. I don't know much. Maybe that's probably obvious to you by now, but here's what I do know. What I told you. We have been in a similar situation before. The youth have fought to restore meaning and to create a less bleak future through hope. The constantly dysregulated states we find ourselves in due to the atrocities portrayed on social media makes it much harder for most people to actually enact the changes they want to see in the real world. But I promise you, you have more agency over your life than you think, and you will realize it when you fight against these primal urges to seek out negative information and hopelessness on this thing. I thought for a
Yeah, I mean, I deleted it. My big thing is, like, after my sins of the past, we'll say, I deleted all social media. Like, I deleted Instagram off my phone. I deleted Snapchat off my phone. I deleted, like, tons of apps off my phone because I just realized that shit is poison. Like, you are constantly, like, seeing bad shit all the fucking time in your, like, social media feeds. And it's just, like, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to look at. It's not healthy to consume it all the time. It's not healthy to be, like, fucking black-pilled and, like, in these, like, echo chambers. It's not good to be like that. And so I just deleted it afterwards, and then I got, like, a taste of the real world, and I realized, wow, a lot of people in the real world don't actually, like, aren't nearly this doom when it comes to, I guess, what you would see online. Like, I was, like, terminally online for years. Like, I grew up being fucking super terminally online, and now that I'm, like, trying to step away from that a little bit, obviously, I'm still a little bit terminally online. Like, I'm not gonna completely get rid of it, I guess, but I try to be more grounded when it comes to these issues, and I also am very careful about the portrayal of information. And I think another huge part of it that I think Cole Hastings is not bringing up here is the lack of... I feel like Gen Z's attention span has gotten very low ever since, like, COVID, TikTok. Like, TikTok has, like, short-form content. There's a lot of short-form content that you're watching. And so, like, you're scrolling through videos and you're just, like, watching short videos. And, like, the attention span is, like, super low. But actually, like, trying to, like, break down the content for yourself and, like, actually, like, wanting to do research yourself just to, like, fact check something, Gen Z doesn't want to do that. They just want the video to explain everything to them, and then they'll take what they see in the video as face value. And I think that's lowered a lot of people's attention spans significantly, Gen Z especially. And the lack of willingness to do any sort of research on anything is, I think, a particular problem.
While about what message I wanted to leave you with, and I think this is it. In order to escape the radicalization rabbit hole you might find yourselves in, you need to escape or be inspired through art. And before you get all mad at me, like, what the hell is this guy even talking about? Let me tell you a story about two people during World War I who instilled optimism back into the youth. In 1916, Switzerland was neutral but surrounded by the chaos of war. Optimism for the future was hard to come by, and people needed a place to cope with reality's relentless bad news. Inspired by the artists, writers, and intellectuals that fled there, Hugo Ball and Emmy Hennings opened what they called the Cabaret Voltaire in 1916. The cabaret staged absurd performances, including spoken word, dance, and music. Though some of these performances were directly tied to the war, much of the entertainment was experimental, allowing the audience to...
It's interesting. Huh. I mean, when you think about it, there wasn't really a lot of forms of entertainment in 1916. Like, obviously, like, television didn't exist, to my knowledge. I don't know when the television was invented. Yeah, I'm gonna look that up, actually. I am curious now. Television was invented in the 1920s, so not long after 1960 was the first iteration of it. But even during the 1920s, it wasn't like a functional television that we know and love today. Yeah, I mean, in 1916, like, we had, like, many other forms of, like, I guess, entertainment back in the day. And I guess I could see why, like, this exhibit or, like, this, I guess, group that you can, like, go to or whatever, was, like, an escape for a lot of people, especially considering that there was a lot of bad shit that, I guess, was constantly happening in Switzerland during the World War One. And I mean, World War One was a very bleak time, I would imagine, for a lot of people back in the day.
If only for a moment, escape the raging conflict. This used to be the young people's best way of escaping from the atrocities of life that they couldn't make a direct impact on in the moment. They immersed themselves in art, gathering together in groups that, in most cases I would say, didn't discriminate and were very welcoming. When people came out of that viewing experience, out of engaging with art, suddenly they were instilled with a bit of hope. And though the idea of a better future might have seemed far away, that little sense of hope reverberated throughout their actions. If we compare that to how we cope today, the difference is night and day. Our forms of escapism don't leave us more refreshed and inspired to take on the world when we return to it. They only leave us more doomeristic and hopeless. If we really
Yeah, I could see that.
want to start feeling like things will get better, which will in turn allow us to do the actions that will actually make life better for us in the future, we need to engage with art meaningfully like we used to. Art is where we go to make sense of the world. It's where connections are made and stories take place that ignite inspiration and optimism within us.
I think that a lot of people use social media and, like, I guess art forms posting on social media to that sort of, I guess, they try to use social media, the art that they see there, as like a substitute for this, right? But, like, I think what Cole Hastings needs to make clear here is, like, should you see the art in person or on the internet? I think you should see it in person. I think you should go in person and try to, like, step out of your comfort zone. I think that's, like, a very important thing that a lot of people need to learn. Yes, it might put you out of your comfort zone. Yes, you might be a bit introverted, but, like, it's one of the stepping stones for you to, like, actually, like, step out of this, like, form of radicalization.
A good book, a good movie, a good painting, a good piece of craftsmanship. This is where we see someone's tireless process materialized that some part of us can relate to. And when we see and we're surrounded by people who have the same feelings we have, who overcame those feelings and overcame that struggle through art, we start to think to ourselves, maybe that's possible for me too. Maybe I can start to shift things into a positive state. When you detach yourself from the phone, when you immerse yourself in a great piece of fiction, or you paint, or you journal, or you write, or you build some DIY project while you're still working through your emotions, that's when you start to realize there is a future that looks better, and it is a future I can contribute to. As soon as you feel yourself getting emotional and wanting to turn to this rectangle to shut your brain off, stop. Let your thoughts breathe. Think about how you're trying to blame some sort of average person or some group of people for what's going on in the world and how you want to become radicalized and how your emotions are starting to fill up. Sit with those emotions, as awful as they might feel, and move through them through some sort of art form or through some sort of healthy escapism like I outlined in this video.
I think there's a huge amount of truth to this, personally. That could be, like, writing it out. That could be, like, using, like, drawing or whatever. I don't know. Like, there's, like, some sort of, like, thing for it. I mean, not every person is gonna, like, want to express art in some capacity, but, like, there are definitely a lot of writers in the world. There's a lot of people who, I guess, design in some creative industry. Trying to get an actual job in the creative industry sucks right now, especially considering AI is just gonna replace everything anyways, so...
Just realize how every human, at the end of the day, just wants to feel fulfilled, like their actions mean something in the world. And if someone is super radicalized, you now understand why the world would push them to that sort of thinking. And you don't necessarily have to give that type of person sympathy, but at the very least you can have that sort of understanding and perhaps push them to not be as radicalized in their thinking through healthy, engaging conversations, healthy discourse, and healthy disagreements that could help push us towards a better world where we understand, yeah, we're pretty fucking different, but we're also pretty fucking alike, and everyone kind of just wants the same thing, and there's probably a better way to do all of this. And that's a world where we can actually start tackling the root issues of economic instability, institutions failing, and a lack of meaning, instead of blaming it on a certain race or because you don't have a high enough sexual market value.
Damn, not fucking red pillars and groypers like Nick Fuentes catching strays here at the end of the video.
I would love to hear how you inject more optimism into this world in the comments below. Let's start a positive chain.
Hey, I mean, I said it throughout this video. Hopefully we had a good discussion. I think we did.
To get the more positive stuff flowing so people actually feel influenced to get off their phones or get off whatever they're watching this on right now and go engage with the real world and smile at people and just think, well, we're gonna fucking make it through this because we've been in a similar situation before and we'll get through it again. And that is it. That is it. I'm not gonna tell you to watch another video. Go enjoy life.
Yeah, I think you should enjoy life. But yeah, that was a very interesting discussion. I enjoyed that very much.